There's a lot of interns here. This is the first one. We missed a week last week, which is crazy. It's the first week we had missed since December of 2016, which is crazy. We're going to talk about Amazon and Whole Foods. And this is nothing that necessarily is brand new. It's been out for a couple weeks. But I hope that today we can do a few things that are different, a few things that you're not necessarily reading on all the websites that are publishing 1,000 articles a day about this. And the hope is that we can show you something cool. So notoriously also, we get to deal with the clicker. So as everything is published on Edge, this whole thing's being recorded, it's being live streamed. We'll see how that whole thing goes. And you can get the deck, you can get supporting resources, and everything available via Edge very soon. As you know, we almost have 10 channels now live on Edge, and I hope that everyone in this room is taking advantage of at least one of them. They're being built because we know that not everyone loves to read emails, and we know not everyone likes to jump on edge.periscope.com all the time. And so we've built 10 diverse channels so that you can tune in the way that you like. So definitely check those out. The most new kind of update is our newsletter systems now are not necessarily just for us. We now have client-facing newsletters that are being produced every 2 weeks, and they're getting some incredible feedback. We actually have onboarded 2 of our clients that are using those now. So if your clients aren't on that, and that's something you want to get on, definitely let me know. The other interesting thing is we're getting geared up to kind of launch a YouTube channel that have all these sessions built into it. Now that channel is going to be streaming this stuff live. It's also going to have past sessions so you can tune in and watch whenever you want, and hopefully some other content that's not just me sitting up here and talking about stuff. And live right now, so right now we're on my Periscope and a whole bunch of other channels as well. So that's a little about Edge. And then obviously this presentation will be available at 9:30 today as all your phones light up as we walk out of here with the weekly newsletter. So we're going to talk about Whole Foods and Amazon. What does it mean for us as an agency? What does it mean for the clients that we work with every single day, right? And before we start, I looked back in the last 6 months, and we have talked about Amazon a ton, right? Amazon, we're beating it like, I don't even know the analogy, but we're talking about a ton. Like 80% of posts that we've talked about is Amazon incorporated somewhere. And I think it's a testament. It's an interesting thing. If we look at Amazon's mission statement over the last 10 years, right? It started with Amazon.com's objective is to be the leading online retailer of information-based products and services with initial focus on books. That was the original mission statement that they talked about just a few years ago. It's evolved, right? It evolved to our mission is to be the Earth's most customer-centric company to build a place where people can come and find and discover anything they might want to buy online. And most recently, we seek to be Earth's most customer-centric company, right? So we've completely destroyed the barriers all the way to the core of the mission statement to truly embrace what Amazon is today, which is much more, as we all know, than just an online retailer, right? And truly, their goal is to take a cut of every single piece of economic activity in the world, right? Amazon Whole Foods, right? Nothing that's crazy new, but this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what happened. We're going to dive a little bit more into that than maybe Mashable and CNN and the Wall Street Journal have necessarily covered. We're going to look at why it was kind of an odd purchase for Amazon. It was kind of weird for them to purchase this. It wasn't a small amount of money, almost $14 billion. We're going to look at why it was truly a solid move for them to do. We're going to look at the industries that are going to be affected and have already been affected by this kind of transition. And we're going to look at actionable next steps that we as Periscope, when we sit back down at our desk, can take based on the information that we look at today. So June 16th, it was a couple weeks, it's about 2 weeks ago now, right? And Amazon and Whole Foods were purchased. I stood up at my desk, I hung up the phone with my wife and said, guys, Amazon just bought Whole Foods for $14 billion. Probably the biggest piece of news, I would argue, in the last 6, 12, 18, and maybe even further than that, right? But the interesting thing is that wasn't the only acquisition that happened that day, and some say it was strategic. Walmart actually bought Bonobos. I don't know if you guys know that, for a cool $400 million, right? Just chump change, threw that over the wall, and just called it a day. But that's a huge acquisition as well. We can't forget about that. We're not going to talk about that today, but just something to keep in mind. So when we talk about Amazon and Whole Foods, we talk about the 16th a couple weeks ago. Here are the facts, right? We look at the purchase of $13.7 billion. That's a ton of cash, right? The biggest thing, the most tangible thing that they purchased were the actual stores, right? They purchased 465 Whole Foods stores that are located across 3 different countries. And that's the distribution centers that they purchased just straight off with the sales. And it's truly the largest acquisition that Amazon has ever undertaken, right? And why did they do this? Like, what was the point of this purchase? Like, Whole Foods is great. We all love the avocados that Whole Foods sells. But why would Amazon want to do that, right? And I think the tangible things that we quickly jump to are 2 things. We look at the real estate locations, right? They're prime. Like, we have a couple sitting down the road. We had 465 places that Amazon just bought that they can do whatever they want with. And then we're looking at a customer overlap. You look at the prime customer notoriously as being a higher income individual, right? And Whole Foods actually transitions with that a ton. Now, Amazon is looking to expand differently, and we won't talk about that today, but there's an article up on Edge that talks about Amazon's now offering Prime for a discounted rate based on the government assistance that you might be on, and so people who are on government assistance are getting Prime as little as $4 or $5 a month, right? And it's an incredible, incredible thing, but we're not going to talk about that. It has huge impact, right? But ultimately, it was still a pretty odd purchase, and I want to tell you why that might be, right? So Amazon's only spent over $1 billion one time, and that's when they purchased Zappos. And I don't know if you guys even knew that Zappos was purchased by Amazon, right? They purchased Zappos for, I think it was $1.2 billion. And when you look at the 3 other major acquisitions that they've done, so they purchased Zappos, they purchased Twitch, and they purchased Audible, right? There's nothing in comparison. So we compare the top couple here, and you look at when they bought Alexa for $250 million, they bought Audible for $300 million, Twitch for 0.97, so it's $970 million, Zappos for 1.2. If you look at Whole Foods, this is off the charts, right? The amount of money that they spent for this purchase is gigantic. And it just goes to show. The other interesting thing, we won't dive too far into this, but you look at the most recent acquisitions by Amazon, it's truly for 2 reasons why they buy companies, right? One is to eliminate competitors, right? If Zappos is going to infringe on my shoe business, I'm just going to buy them. I don't care, right? I'm Jeff. 2 is to buy tech to plug into their existing services. So they'll buy service companies, buy tech companies, plug them in to make Prime Video better or to make service better in some way, shape, or form. But Whole Foods doesn't necessarily fall into any one of those categories. The other super interesting thing is Whole Foods wasn't doing that good, right? We look at the stock price of Whole Foods, and it wasn't actually that great. And the argument is that Prime or Amazon probably got, that's an interesting slip-up I just did, right? We look at Prime as Amazon is such a, whatever, we won't get into that. But Whole Foods wasn't doing that good, right? We look at the price, and the reason why this was, and I won't go into that, is that's a Whole Foods. Oh, it's beautiful, right? But we look at competing grocery stores, and grocery stores that some of us in this room have had incredible focus on in the last couple of months, and we look at they're able to duplicate the experience that only Whole Foods was once able to do, right? So we look at this, that's a Hy-Vee, right? That is a Hy-Vee store, and so why would I go to Whole Foods and pay $12 for an avocado when truly Hy-Vee is just down the road offering me a lot more? One of the many reasons that we speculate the stock price is down, needless to say, Amazon bought it. They potentially got a really good deal on it. So why did Amazon wait so long? $14 billion is a ton of cash, but Amazon could have purchased that a few years ago. Wouldn't have been an issue. But if we look at the category of grocery, and I'm not an expert in grocery, and there might be some in the room who know grocery a little bit better than I do, but grocery is incredibly difficult, right? And if we compare it to Amazon's initial offering of books, there's a huge difference, right? So we look at books. E-commerce can win a selection. There's millions and millions of books on e-commerce. We can have a huge warehouse. It's great. We can offer all the books in the world. We instantly are better than bookstores that can only carry a couple thousand titles. They sit in a warehouse forever, right? Oops, here we go. They sit in a warehouse forever. They never go bad. They're constant across all channels. When you buy a paperback Harry Potter book, it's a paperback Harry Potter book. There's no difference really in books, right? And they're easy shipping. But when we look at the transition to grocery, we're looking at the exact opposite, right? Groceries expire quickly. They get bad. You can't just keep them on the shelf, right? They're variable. Some people like ripe avocado, some people don't. That's obviously just the tip of the iceberg. And shipping is incredibly difficult with grocery. But groceries are fundamentally a different problem that needed a different solution. Amazon couldn't necessarily just say, well, we figured this whole thing out with books and iPhone cables. Can't we just put some avocados in the same tray and call it a day? We can't do that, right? And that can't happen. And so it's interesting to see. And this is a funny clip from The Simpsons you guys will all enjoy.
Oh, wait, I didn't see these blueberries. $830.
Fine, but we're going to a regular grocery store next week.
A week? Without preservatives, this food won't last a day. Look.
Right, so it's the point of Whole Foods, right, where these things aren't lasting that long. You're going to 3, 4, 5 days for some of these products, and how are we shipping it? And even with Prime, it's really, really difficult, and Amazon's seen an incredible amount of friction in that case, right? So let's look at the obvious reasons why they purchased. We talked about stores, et cetera, but we looked at the retail footprint, right? By acquiring Whole Foods, Amazon gained those 465 locations that they can distribute products from. And not just grocery. Imagine that the Prime distribution center is not on Como Avenue. Heaven forbid it's 3 miles north. It's just down the road, right? So instead of an hour delivery, what if it's 10 minutes? What if it's 5 minutes? What if it's just down the road, right? And you're seeing that. Remember Amazon Go? We talked a ton about that. That one little store in Seattle where they're like, this is a convenience store. You can pick whatever you want off the shelves and just walk out. Well, now it's at 465 locations, which is incredible, right? And the distribution channels are immense now. Instead of having 100 warehouses, you now can quickly have thousands, right? So 465. You're looking at faster delivery. We talked about that. We basically looked at Prime Now, right? And the opportunity of Prime Now, and I think we've all used Prime Now before, but Prime Now under 2 hours, we talked about what if it's under an hour, what if it's under a couple of minutes. That's now all possible for mass markets because Whole Foods are specifically located in places where Prime customers already are, right? So it's a really interesting kind of crossover. A better grocery selection. So we won't go into it too much, but Amazon's been playing in grocery for the last few years, right? They have Amazon Fresh, et cetera, and they have warehouses that are sitting with grocery in them, but they can't stock that much stuff, right? It's the whole reason why avocados go bad. They have to specifically stay with a certain amount of grocery categories, which leave the selection poor, which leave not a ton of us in this room using Prime Grocery, right? But now with Whole Foods has got the whole grocery store, and now Amazon has access to that entire thing, right? The not so obvious. Whole Foods is actually looked at, I would say, and this is going a little deep, we won't stay in too much time on this, but we're looking at Whole Foods as truly now the biggest customer of Amazon Grocery. Not necessarily Whole Foods is now Amazon Grocery, but Whole Foods is just another customer. And stay with me here. Here's the diagram, right? So we look at Whole Foods, right? Easy enough. We all know Whole Foods is a great grocery store. And we look at all the fruit and vegetables and meats and non-perishables and supplies, the groceries, the product that Whole Foods now has sitting in their stores, right? And truly they come from two places, right? We have the 365 brand, which is Whole Foods' own brand, and then we have other name brands that fill the shelves, depending on what they are. For Whole Foods, it's a little different than a Cub or whatever, but they have that. Now, imagine all of the other places that need food, right? We look at, the delivery service from Amazon. Like, they need food. They buy food from somewhere, right? But you also have, like, restaurants and schools and hospitals and all these other places that need food, and more as demand kind of continues to evolve, they need better food and fresher food, right? Now, what happens if we put Amazon in the middle of this whole thing? The huge, gigantic tech logistics platform that Amazon is, right? And then we look at the suppliers that Amazon has access to, and all of a sudden we have this ecosystem where Whole Foods is no longer the grocery store that gets food and then Amazon spits it out. Amazon is the grocery company where they're taking the store brand of 365 and all the name brands that one of their customers has access to, and they're shipping it through all of these other channels that are enabled by the Amazon service, and Whole Foods just becomes one point of distribution. Like, it is simply just the customer on the side. So if you have 1,000 avocados in Como Avenue storage facility that are going bad, well, let's just put them to the 10 Whole Foods locations that we have within trucking distance. Like, Whole Foods is just going to be a customer. It's a part of a larger piece, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, including myself until we looked into it, was to say, they're buying the back-end logistical systems, they're buying the distribution, they're buying the brands, not necessarily just the locations, right? So back to consumers, the other interesting thing, and this could be no surprise, is that we look at food and grocery being about 20% of the average consumer's spend month in and month out, right? And when we look at what Prime offers, they claim we do purchases across the category. So you can buy anything on Prime. And I think that's true minus this huge gap in grocery, or it was true in a long time. And it's not that Amazon didn't offer grocery in the past, it just kind of sucked, right? Amazon Prime wasn't that good, it wasn't fresh, it didn't have the diversity of foods, it wasn't fast enough, it wasn't on a consistent enough basis, so we all just went to Whole Foods, we all just went to Target, et cetera. But now, with grocery, Amazon Prime covers the entire spectrum of what a consumer needs, right? And so when you look at this holistic solution, you're looking at eliminating truly the need of anyone else, right? There's no need for anyone else in the market. So when we look at the Target run, right, there's no reason why I have to go to Target anymore. So if you think about it, and I think everyone's different, right? But for probably my demo, the only physical store I probably would ever go to is to get groceries. That's because there wasn't really an option to do anything else. But when you walk into Target and you go into the front right corner for grocery, right? You get the shampoo that you knew you needed. You get the flashlight you need for the basement. You get a hammer. You get the other things because you pass them and you're there and you're already making the investment into going to that store. Right? You never just buy one item at Target, right? But the point is that we don't need to do that anymore, right? Amazon has found a holistic solution to fill that gap. I never go to Target because the only time I ever went to Target was to buy groceries, and I bought 100 other item things on accident. But the point is I never need to go to Target anymore. I never need to go to Walmart anymore. I never need to even go to Whole Foods anymore. But truly, if you want that experience, we'll talk about that later, they're there for you, but Amazon's going to own it too, right? So Jet, I don't know if you guys know, Jet's a big Amazon competitor, an online platform. But Walmart purchased Jet for $4 billion just a couple months ago, and we've talked about that a little bit, chump change compared to the Amazon purchase. And there's actually an article that's posted this morning on Edge that talks about Walmart's toxic culture sleeping into the startup culture of Jet, which is really interesting, right? But a lot of publicists are saying this, is that Amazon's trying to become Walmart before Walmart can figure out how to become Amazon, right? You're looking at the two biggest players in the world trying to figure out each other, right? Both are missing the core pieces of each other and either trying to buy things like this. Now with Amazon, they're trying to become Walmart before Walmart become Amazon, right? We're trying to fill in those gaps to become that kind of holistic solution. So $13.7 billion is a ton of cash, right? But if we remember in the last 10 slides that I just went through, they're not just buying stores, they're not just buying that. Truly, the lifetime value of a Prime customer is well worth the $13.7 billion. We look at Amazon and their Prime customers spending 4 times the amount of money on the platform already. And that's not including the 20% of grocery, right? So on average, a Prime customer spends $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year, which for some of you in this room is not a surprise. You're probably outliers that are keeping that one really high. You're looking at that and you're saying, well, $13.7 billion, that's chump change. If you now own the entire United States Prime customer, which is going to grow exponentially now that we have grocery, the missing category in the first place, it's incredible, right? It's a huge and it's a very positive investment, right? The other interesting thing too, which is a little not as solid, but the overall home presence. You look at all the things that Amazon offers, at the core you have their e-com business and you have delivery, but you also have, Amazon Prime Video, you have the video service, the list goes on. The amount of companies that actually are owned by Amazon are immense. And you also have all these great home products, you have speakers, and you have the new Amazon Look that we're getting tomorrow. But truly, now with grocery, Amazon has a much bigger home presence. Not only do they own the living room and the entertainment and the shipping and the products that you buy, they own grocery, they own meals, they own it, right? And that's just a huge brand kind of love bump that they're going to get, a much more notable thing within the market, right? So Amazon didn't buy the retailer, they bought that holistic customer, and now Amazon can own that entire thing. Okay, that's pretty grim. We're going to continue on. We're going to look at the industry impact here really quickly, right? So we're going to look at what basically happened. But this is a good thing. In 2006, when the iPhone was just a rumor, it was about to come out, Palm CEO Ed Culligan was asked if he was worried about the iPhone, right? We've learned and struggled for years here figuring out how to make a decent phone. PC guys aren't just going to figure this out. They're not just going to walk in, right? That didn't happen. Well, it did. iPhone's here, we all own them, and where's Palm, right? The point is that Apple reduced the phone, Palm phone, to a single application that we probably have hidden somewhere in our phones right now. But what will Amazon do to grocery, right? Let's take a look. In the first day that this came out, so it was Friday the 16th, we look at Amazon stocks raising to about 7.36 bump, so 7.36% bump. We look at Walmart, they dropped just about 5.74%. We looked at Dollar Tree, just over 6, Costco 7, Target 7. We look at Kroger at just over 11, and Super Value dropped 17% in their stock price, right? Now, we're not the only ones that are saying this is a big deal, clearly, and there's some huge industry impact. We also look at not so obvious, Instacart. They have 3 or 4 year deal left with Whole Foods on their contract. But Instacart's going to need to figure out what the heck they're going to do, right? Because Amazon's not just going to buy them, because why would they buy them? They already have the service, they already figured it out, they already own the whole thing, right? So Instacart probably no longer. The other interesting thing, Blue Apron, just going through an IPO, Whole Foods offers everything really Blue Apron ships. And now you have shipping on the other side with Amazon, Blue Apron, right? So you're seeing not necessarily just, oh, grocery's dead, right? You're seeing other companies, the ripple effect by that is huge. So what's next? What are you going to see changes in your world, in the world of Whole Foods, or from a consumer standpoint? And then we're going to look at how us as advertisers and people who represent brands are going to see a change as well. Right, so you're going to see expansion of pre-existing offerings, right? You're going to see an expansion of Prime Pantry, Amazon Fresh, and Prime in general. Grocery sucked, right, before Amazon for a really long time. It's potentially not going to anymore, right, because they have Whole Foods. You're going to look at Prime. What are the different things that they can do now with Prime? How are they going to add value to the $99 a year subscription service now that they own an entire grocery store that's just down the road of the majority of their customers, right? And I think the supply chain, the logistics that we quickly talked about are another thing that you're going to slowly maybe not see on the surface, but are going to have a huge impact on industries. You're going to see Prime offerings bridge physical retail, right? So you looked at, I'll cruise ahead here once, but you look at like the Amazon Fresh pickups, like they're going to be able to do stuff like that. The other interesting thing is the zero margin theory, which I won't talk too much about, but one of the concepts is, why does Amazon even want to make a profit in Whole Foods? They don't need to make a profit. What if they sold food at cost with no profit, and it was only a value add for Prime, and they only scraped your data so they learn more about you as a customer so that you buy more paper towels? They're making the money off the paper towels you're buying on the platform and not the avocados, so why don't you just zero out the revenue or the profits on avocados or on Whole Foods and just completely wipe out the entire grocery industry, because no one would be able to sell anything less than you are. Right? There's the Amazon Fresh pickup. And then you're seeing the retail experiences begin an Amazon impact. And I think you look at, you guys remember this video, right? This idea of the new store in Seattle about how the cool just pick it off the shelf and walk out and your whole thing, no cashier, et cetera. And someone asked yesterday, it's like, oh, if I work for Whole Foods, I'd be pissed. I'm going to get fired. Amazon's just going to replace me with all these computers. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think cashiers are probably done. But I think the Amazon or the Whole Foods experience is hinging on also, too, the grocers that are there. I think we've all been to Whole Foods and realized how awesome, the butchers are and how awesome the, guys in the fresh fruit area are. They're very knowledgeable, and I think they're going to have to keep that. But you're going to see cashiers and other things replaced, I would say, in the next couple months. All right, for us as Periscope, what are we going to do, right? Grocery and home delivery is still incredibly difficult. And for some of us in the room, we deal with this on a day in and day out. But competing retailers still have time to develop an edge over Amazon. Amazon's going to move incredibly quickly. The acquisition of Whole Foods will not instantly make grocery zero out, right? We talk a lot about doomsday, right? Everything's going to close tomorrow. It's not necessarily the case. Amazon moves fast, so we have to move fast too. But we have some businesses and some of our companies have their roots and have their kind of foundations built in things that Amazon's going to need to learn how to do. They're going to be quick at it, but how can we continue to invest in the foundational efforts of the brands that we represent, right? Reinvention, especially in grocery-related categories, will be key. We have a new customer, right? Our new customers come in the last 10 years. We need to make sure that we're quickly reinventing brands in line with that customer, right? It's not just an impact on groceries, it's an impact of all of retail, which was that slide. If we look at the entire holistic solution, we're not just looking necessarily at, Target and Schwann's and the brands that we might think are grocery-related, but we're looking at really everyone. If Amazon's going to own the entire consumer wallet, there's huge implications with that. Right? And then a focus on the experience. Amazon could not deliver the retail experience that was competing with them, so they had to put up $14 billion to buy it. Right? They had to buy the experience of Whole Foods, and I think we talked about the retail experience is key for many presentations, but truly, Amazon had to buy the experience. How has our brands, specifically in retail, enhanced that consumer experience in ways that Amazon couldn't do unless they put up that cash, right? So what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of this when we sit back down at our desks and points of impact? Here we go. Evaluate the points of differentiation with a new mindset of rapid transformation. Wow, that was a big sentence. And demands from the modern customer. I think we need to realize why Amazon's successful. Why is Amazon so successful? Why is their app so easy? Why do we buy nothing but on Prime? Like, why have they found such success? How are we going to replicate that, and how are we going to rapidly transform our brands to meet the modern customer? How are we going to eliminate barriers? Because Amazon doesn't have any barriers. Remember the day one thing? Amazon is constantly in day one in terms of, that's what Jeff Bezos said, but the idea is they constantly are moving incredibly quickly. We need to eliminate barriers to quickly transform brands for the modern day. We need to maintain a focus on the experience. We talked about that. Amazon couldn't compete with the experience, so they had to buy in for $14 billion. We need to focus on Amazon. Amazon is here to stay. They're not going to go anywhere. They own everything, and they're going to continue to do that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I just bought IKEA furniture on Amazon because it was Prime, right? It was free delivery. We need to become experts in Amazon. We need to become experts in the Amazon brand. We cannot avoid being Prime members. We cannot avoid being, getting our groceries delivered. Specifically us in this room who are representing brands who are going to be drastically impacted by this change, we have to be on Amazon. And if you guys aren't Prime members, I encourage you to quickly jump on that. Focus on the competitors. It's a big world. Amazon's not going to own all of it. They might own 95% of it. But get Jet.com, get Instacart, start playing with those platforms. We need to realize how those guys are competing with Amazon and the edges that they're creating to kind of burrow in and still maintain kind of a layer of success. So as I mentioned, get Prime. It's huge. I think we all should be Prime members. We all need to be experts in this. We have Amazon hardware here for you guys to check out. So if you want an Alexa to bring home, if you want an Echo to play with, we have all that. We have the new products too. So tomorrow we're getting the new Amazon Echo Look, or Echo Show, sorry. The Echo Show is an Alexa with a video screen on it. Huge implications. I know it just seems trivial, but it's a big deal. And we also have the new Alexa Wand, and we're constantly staying up to date with that. And so if you don't want to make the purchase under your own Prime account, we have these things for you to take home, and we encourage you to do so. We actually opened up, and I mentioned this a little bit, we've opened up an Amazon Seller Central brand for Periscope. We own a storefront on Amazon, and we're quickly developing against it and playing with different products and everything from writing titles to advertising to the photography to the different offerings we can have for logistics. We are playing with those day in and day out. If you want a piece of that here at Periscope, please let us know. We want people from every single department involved in that. The Future of Retail report, if you don't have a copy of this, this was printed a couple weeks ago. This has a huge kind of section on this current state of Amazon, which is sad because it's already a little bit out of date after being 3 weeks late. But the point is that this talks a little bit about the implications of Amazon and retail brands, so definitely get it. And Edge is packed full of things with Amazon, right? So if you don't read the online updates or the research reports or even some of the newsletters, and thanks for coming to Public House today, we talk about a ton, so that's more on Edge. We have 3 minutes. I would love to hear rebuttals, questions, any points of conversation, anything that stood out to you from the group.
What happens if Amazon adopts in publishers by, let's say, Costco or Kroger?
So they buy a competitor, you're saying?
Yeah, like let's say Amazon or Costco comes in and offers a 50-50.
I think they could do that. I think Amazon would, I mean, it's valid, right? Like everyone else, there's other traditional retailers who have huge pockets too. I think that there's no other company right now that's being able to move faster than Amazon and relate quicker and move and take action faster. So if they buy that, well, then Amazon might just turn to Trader Joe's, or they might turn to Kowalski's, and they might turn to some other retailer. But it's a valid point, right? I think the difference is that Amazon being a logistics company is buying a grocer, not a grocer buying a grocer, right? So you're filling that gap that like the Walmart, Amazon thing has. But it's a valid point. They could, right? Cool. Any other questions or points while we have another minute left? Awesome. As I mentioned, this whole presentation is available for download on Edge, both the PDF and Keynote. So if you like some of the slides and want to just completely rip them off and put them in your presentation with clients, please do so. If you want this conversation to be brought elsewhere to departments or clients, we always love doing custom reports for them. So let us know. So thanks for coming, guys. Really appreciate you coming in for a half hour.